The 14th floor conference room at Linwood Freight smelled of rain and printer toner. October had crept under the door. Harper stood behind the walnut desk, the timesheet squared neatly in front of her. Declan stood across from her, hands folded behind his back, the gray collar of his shirt frayed at the seam. 3 late arrivals this month, Mr. Whitford. I cannot make exceptions. He did not argue. He nodded once. Through the glass wall, Mira sat in the lobby with her backpack on her lap, waiting. The elevator doors slid shut. Harper watched them close. Something inside her had just moved. Declan and Mira walked home in the soft rain. He had not called a cab. The fare from downtown to West Asheville would have been $23 he could not spare. Mira held his hand without complaint. She was used to weather. "Why are you home early?" she asked. "I am giving you more time," he said. "That is all." She accepted that, the way she had accepted most things since her mother died. 2 miles back, on Merrimon Avenue, an old woman named Edith Harlan had stepped off the curb at the bus stop and her knee had given way. Declan had been across the street. He had crossed without thinking. He had called 911 at 7:43. He had stayed with her, his jacket folded under her head, until the ambulance came. 47 minutes. The paramedic had asked his name for the report. He had given it. He had not asked for hers. In Harper's office, he had stood with his hands behind his back and said nothing about Edith. A good deed did not need a receipt. He had been raised that way, and he intended to die that way. By the time they reached the small bungalow on Sulphur Springs Road, the rain had thinned. Mira ran ahead to check the mailbox. There was an envelope from her school nurse, a reminder about the audiology referral. Declan put it in his pocket and did not let her see it. Inside, the kitchen smelled faintly of last night's stew. He opened the refrigerator. Half a carton of milk, 2 eggs, a heel of cheddar wrapped in wax paper. He closed the door and opened the cupboard above the stove. Rice, beans, a jar of honey from the farmer's market. "Pancakes," he said. "Tomorrow morning. Strawberry if I can find some on sale." Mira pulled a folded page out of her backpack and held it up. A red cardinal, drawn in colored pencil, sitting on a bare branch. The bird's eye was a careful, deliberate dot. "For the fridge," she said. He smiled and pinned it under the magnet shaped like a sailboat. The boat had been Lila's. He had never moved it. He read with Mira until she fell asleep on the couch, then carried her to bed. He stood at her door a long minute, watching her breathe. Then he went back to the kitchen and opened his laptop. The login took him to a bank he had never mentioned to anyone at Linwood Freight. The balance was 7 figures. He looked at it the way another man might look at a photograph of a place he had once lived. He did not move a dollar. He closed the laptop. Outside, a single car passed on the wet street. The October rain returned, lighter now, more like mist. He sat at the kitchen table with the light off and listened to it. He thought about Harper Linwood standing behind her walnut desk. He thought about Mira's audiology appointment, which he would have to reschedule. He thought about Edith Harlan, who had squeezed his hand from the gurney and said thank you. He thought about none of those things long enough to be called dwelling. He stood up, washed the single coffee cup in the sink, dried it, and went to bed. Tuesday morning. Declan drove the old Ford F-150 up Tunnel Road to the storage facility on the eastern edge of town. The truck was a 2009 model, paid off, with 191,000 miles on the odometer. He kept it running himself. The roll-up door of Unit 44 took a combination lock he never wrote down. Inside, the air was cool and dry. A footlocker sat against the back wall under a folded American flag in a triangle case. He sat on the concrete floor and opened the locker the way a man opens a letter from a person he is not sure he wants to hear from. A ranger tab, a bronze star with valor in its velvet box, the ribbon untucked, 3 photographs in a manila envelope. Himself at 24 in Kandahar, sand on his jaw, eyes flat from sleep. Himself and Lila on their wedding day at a chapel in Marshall, her smile too big for the frame. Lila in a hospital bed holding newborn Mira, her hair already thinning from the first round of chemo. He sat with the photographs a while. He did not weep. He had done his weeping in private, years ago, on a back road off the Blue Ridge Parkway, in this same truck, with the engine off and the window down and the night louder than he had expected. Across town, on a quiet street in Montford, a real estate agent rang the bell of a tidy clapboard house. The neighbor across the road, An old man named Wade Cleary came out to fetch his paper. "You hear about the Murphy place?" Wade asked. "I am looking for a man named Whitford." Wade studied him a long second. "You do not know who that man used to be, do you?" The agent said nothing. Wade went back inside. Declan did not know it, but a paper trail he had carefully tied up still had a single loose thread. 4 years earlier, he had inherited 40 acres of land outside Black Mountain from his grandfather, an old logger named Eli Whitford. The land was in his name but not on his tongue. He paid the taxes from an account in a Charlotte bank no one in Linwood Freight had ever seen. From that same account, every August, he wired $150,000 to the Ridge Veterans Children Fund, a small nonprofit that paid tuition for the children of disabled or fallen service members in western North Carolina. In 4 years, the fund had paid out more than $600,000. The board chair was a retired chaplain. The treasurer's signature on the audit was Beatrice Halsey, who worked human resources at Linwood Freight and had signed a non-disclosure agreement she would not break. Back at the 14th floor, Vaughn Pritchard let himself into Harper's office without knocking. He set a slim report on her desk. "Carolina Coast Distribution is calling. The multi-port manifest is jammed on our end. You just let go of the only man who understood that system." His voice was calm. Calm the way a knife is calm. Harper looked out the window at the slate-gray sky. She did not feel sorry. She felt unsteady, which was worse. Her phone buzzed. "Margot, driving in. I want to see you." For the first time that day, Harper smiled. In Wednesday morning. The Linwood operations floor had the energy of a kitchen during a fire. 3 managers stood around a printout of the Carolina Coast Manifest, talking over each other. The contract called for a 14-step multi-port handoff between Wilmington and Charleston, and no one currently employed could trace the chain of custody past Step 7. The client levied an $80,000 daily late penalty starting at noon. Harper called Vaughn in. He arrived with 2 folders, and the expression of a man who had been waiting for this meeting his whole career. "We tighten," he said. "I have 2 more senior names. Lean restructure. 6 months from now, no one remembers Whitford." Harper did not nod. She did not say no either. Something about the smoothness of Vaughn's pitch sat wrong with her. The way a step too quietly fixed makes you check the floor. "Give me until end of day," she said. He left the folders. She did not open them. Across the river, at a small diner on East Patton called Carver's Counter, Declan sat in the booth by the window. A heavy ceramic mug landed in front of him. The owner, Hal Halsey, did not slide a check. "I remember you from the Veterans Fundraiser in 2023, Hal said. "You wrote the biggest check in the room and made the chaplain promise not to read your name out. You do not have to play small with me, son." Declan looked at him a long second. Then he picked up the coffee and nodded once. Hal moved on. The diner filled with the easy hum of a Wednesday lunch. 2 blocks west, Harper sat at a red light on Charlotte Street. She had taken the long way back from a client meeting. Through the side window she saw the diner's front glass, and through the glass she saw Declan. He was sitting alone in his Carhartt jacket, the cuffs frayed at the wrists, the coffee cup small in his hand. He was not looking at his phone. He was looking at nothing in particular, the way men who have learned to wait look at the world. The light turned green. She did not move. A horn sounded behind her. She moved. She did not know why she had stopped looking, or why she had wanted to stop driving. That evening at the house on Vanderbilt Place, Margot poured the wine. She talked about her new landscape design contract at Biltmore, about a stand of dogwoods she wanted to save, about an estimator who could not read drawings. Harper listened with half her attention. Margot paused. She turned her glass slowly by the stem. "I still think about that night on the pass," she said. "The snow, the man. I do not even know if he is still alive." Harper set her glass down. The wine ticked softly against the wood. For 5 years, she had carried the weight of an unnamed debt. She had paid in donations to volunteer rescue squads, in checks to the American Red Cross, in quiet thank yous given to no one in particular. None of it had landed. The debt was personal, and she did not know whose name to write on it. "He is alive," she said, with more certainty than she could explain. Margot looked at her. "How do you know?" Harper did not answer. She refilled her sister's glass. Friday afternoon. Harper sat in the back of her own Mercedes, while her driver navigated west on Haywood. She had refused this trip 3 times. By noon, she had run out of refusals. The server logs would not unlock without Declan's credentials, and the Carolina Coast contract had 36 hours left. She had her driver wait at the corner. She walked the last block alone in low heels and a wool coat. The sidewalk was wet. A neighbor watering chrysanthemums looked up, then looked away, the way neighbors do for a stranger in a coat that costs more than their porch. The house on Sulphur Springs Road was a single-story bungalow with a red door and a porch swing held up by chain. The lawn was small and cut clean. A pot of late chrysanthemums sat on the bottom step. A pair of muddy boots stood neatly to the left of the mat. She knocked. The door opened a foot and Mira looked up at her, holding a sheet of drawing paper against her chest like a small shield. "Hi," Mira said. "Who are you?" "I am a person from where your dad works." Mira considered that. "Are you the one who sent him home early?" Harper did not have an answer ready. "Yes," she said. Mira nodded as if she had been told a fact about the weather and stepped back. "He is in the kitchen." Inside, the bungalow was warm with the smell of chicken soup. A cast-iron pot sat low on a back burner, books on the shelf in the living room. A battered paperback of Marcus Aurelius, a Wendell Berry collection, a worn leather journal with a ribbon marker. On the mantel, in a simple oak frame, a photograph of Declan in ranger dress uniform, a bronze star pinned to his chest. Beside it, a smaller photograph of Lila in a hospital gown, smiling at someone just out of frame. Declan came out of the kitchen with a towel over his shoulder. He was not surprised to see her. He was not cold either. "I made you a sheet," he said. He handed her a single page in his clean block handwriting. Server credentials, the address of the secondary node, a flow diagram of the Carolina Coast manifest with the failure point circled in red, and 3 sentences explaining how to clear it. He had prepared it the night she had fired him. "This is," Harper started, "not for you," he said. "For the people on that contract who did not deserve to lose their bonuses." He helped her carry a banker's box of paper records out to the car. The front hallway was narrow. When she turned at the door, her shoulder brushed his. Neither of them stepped back. Neither of them stepped closer. They held the half-second the way men hold a glass that is almost too full. Mira waved from the front window. At the curb, he set the box in the trunk and closed the lid with the soft, exact pressure of a man who had spent years closing doors quietly so his daughter could sleep. "Thank you," Harper said. "You are welcome." In the car going back to downtown, Harper did not turn on the radio. She watched the rain start again on the windshield and replayed the image of the framed photograph, the dress uniform, the citation cord, the small medal on the chest. Bronze star with valor. She knew what that meant. Her father had been Navy. At a stoplight on Patton Avenue, she said one word to herself, very quietly. "Oh, Monday." Vaughn had drafted a fresh memo over the weekend, recommending the termination of 4 warehouse leads in the Hendersonville hub. He laid the memo on Harper's desk with the small, pleased smile of a man playing a long board. "No," Harper said. He waited. "No," she said again. "We are not cutting hourly people to save the contract that bad management broke." He took the memo back. "I will bring it to the board Monday week." He let himself out. Harper sat with the door closed for 10 minutes before she could trust her hands on the keyboard again. That evening Harper sat in her office past dark and stared at her phone for a long time before she pressed call. Declan answered on the second ring. "Mr. Whitford, Miss Linwood, I would like to retain you as a consultant for 1 hour, $250, tonight." The line was silent a beat. "Mira needs me home tonight," he said. "I am sorry." He hung up softly. She set the phone down. She did not move for a full minute. Then she put her head in her hands briefly and sat back up. At 11 minutes past 11, her inbox chimed. The sender was a Gmail address she did not recognize, a string of letters and numbers with no name attached. The body was empty. The attachment was a single PDF, 1 page, no signature, no header, a flow diagram of the Carolina Coast manifest. Hand-drawn corrections, then retyped. 3 lines of explanation in clean block sentences. She read it 3 times. She printed it. She placed it in the center of her desk. She did not reply to the email. She turned the lamp off and sat in the dark a moment, holding the printed page against her chest. Monday morning, she stood in front of her operations team with the printed page in her hand and walked them through the fix line by line as if she had drawn it herself. 2 hours later, the manifest cleared. The client withdrew the penalty. Vaughn watched her through the conference room window without moving. In the elevator afterward, he said, "New advisor?" "I figured it out," she said. He smiled the way a chess player smiles at a move he had not anticipated. The doors opened. He stepped out first. Tuesday at 12:30, Margot appeared in Harper's lobby with 2 paper bags and a thermos. She was in jeans and her contractor's flannel. She had come straight from a site. "I want to take you somewhere for lunch," Margot said. "There is an owner I want to thank. He sent me soup last winter when I was sick, and I never went back to say it properly." "Where?" "A little diner on East Patton. Hal's place. Carver's counter." Harper's hand paused on her coat. She held the coat a half-second too long. "Okay," she said. "Lead the way." They rode the elevator down together. Margot talked about a tree she had saved that morning, a white oak the contractor had wanted to cut, and a dog that had followed her around the site for an hour and refused to leave. Harper listened, and did not say that the diner she was about to walk into was the same diner she had seen Declan Whitford sitting in 3 days before. The October sun broke through the cloud cover briefly as they stepped onto the sidewalk. It did not last. Carver's counter. 12:40 in the afternoon. The lunch rush had peaked and was starting to thin. Hal Halsey wiped his hands on his apron and crossed the room when he saw Margot. "Sweetheart," he said, "you came back." He looked past her at Harper and nodded the small, careful nod of a man who recognizes a face he is not supposed to know. "This is my sister," Margot said. "She runs Linwood Freight." "Then she is welcome here too," Hal said. He led them to the corner booth. At the counter, with his back to the room, Declan sat on a stool. Mira sat beside him on a booster, working through a bear-shaped pancake with the seriousness of an engineer. A red crayon lay next to her plate. Margot opened the menu. She was talking about coffee. She was talking about whether Hal still made his vanilla cream. Then Declan, low and warm, said to Mira, "Stay with me, sweetheart. Do not dream on your plate." Margot's hand stopped on the page. She stood up. Her face had gone the color of paper. "That voice," she said. Harper started to ask what she meant, but Margot was already walking. 2 steps. 3. Declan turned on the stool. He saw her. He had never known her name. He had only ever known her as the woman whose hand he had held inside a wrecked Bronco at 22 minutes past 1 in the morning, on the Blue Ridge above Asheville, with the snow coming in sideways. He had pulled her out of the wreck through the rear window. He had kept her against his chest under his coat and her blanket for 3 hours until the rescue truck made it up the pass. He had told her to stay with him. He had said it 40 or 50 times. He had not given his name. He stood up slowly. Margot turned to Harper. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes had filled, but she did not blink. "It is him," she said. "Harper, it is him. He is the man who pulled me out of the snow. 5 years. I would know that voice if I heard it through a wall." Harper stood. Her hand found the back of the booth. She looked at Declan. He looked back, calm on the outside, something cracking quietly behind his eyes. "I did not know she was your sister," he said. "I swear to you, I did not know." Hal Halsey set a glass of water in front of Margot without speaking. Mira reached for her father's hand and held it. Harper sat down. She breathed once, deeply, and then again. She had stood behind a walnut desk on the 14th floor with a timesheet and told this man she could not make exceptions. She had walked him to an elevator. She had watched the doors close. She had fired the man who had kept her sister alive on a pass at 5 below zero for 3 hours. Through the front window of Carver's counter, the October rain began again. Small, steady. The 4 of them sat in their corner of the diner, and no one said another word for a long minute. Mira finished her pancake. Margot pressed both hands to her face. Hal Halsey, behind the counter, quietly turned off the radio. That night, Harper did not go home. She drove back to the 14th floor, ran her keycard at 10 past 7, and turned on one lamp at her desk. She did not pull Declan's file through HR. She pulled it herself. She had access. She rarely used it. Public service record, partial release. Sergeant First Class, Declan A. Whitford. 75th Ranger Regiment, 2nd Battalion. 2 deployments to eastern Afghanistan. Bronze Star with Valor. Awarded for actions during the recovery of a downed crew in Paktia Province. Honorable Discharge, March of 2019, less than a month after his wife Lila Whitford received a stage 3 diagnosis. She read the citation twice. She closed the file. She opened a browser and searched the Ridge Veterans Children Fund. A small website, a chaplain's photograph, a quiet annual report. The treasurer's signature on the most recent audit was a name she knew, Beatrice Halsey. She called Bea's extension. It was almost 9. "B, can you come up?" "No." "No." B came in with her coat already on her arm and sat with her hands folded on her knees, the way a woman sits when she has been preparing for a conversation for a long time and is not sure she still has the script. "I signed an NDA," Bea said before Harper asked. "I will keep it. But I will tell you this. He has quietly paid tuition for the children of 7 veteran families in this city. 2 of them lost a parent in service. 3 have a parent with a traumatic brain injury. He does not know their names. He asked the chaplain not to tell him. He took the job here because the shift was flexible enough for him to pick Mira up after school. That was the only reason. He could have bought this building, Harper. He took a $43,000 coordinator job to be a father. Harper sat with that. The lamp cast a yellow square on the wood between them. "Why did you not tell me?" "Because I gave my word," Bea said, "and because I thought it would be better for him if no one ever did." She left at 9:40. The next morning, the board sent a one-line email at 7:08, requesting an emergency session at 8:30. 5 members. The agenda line read, "Executive Review." In the boardroom, Vaughn Rose, a chief executive who personally re-engages a recently terminated employee, off process, in the wake of discovering that employee saved her sister's life 5 years earlier, has placed this company in an indefensible conflict of interest. "I am asking the board to formally review the position of Miss Linwood." 3 members nodded slowly. 2 said nothing. The chairman, a soft-voiced man named Garrison, asked Harper if she had any opening response. She did not have evidence. She had not gathered it. She had sat with a sister in a corner booth and watched the rain. "I would like 1 week, she said. Garrison glanced down the table. "You have until next Monday at 10. Harper walked out of the boardroom past Vaughn's chair without looking at him. In the elevator, she pressed the button for the lobby and not for her floor. She needed air. On the sidewalk, the October sun was thin. She stood under the awning and watched 2 pigeons argue over a piece of bread. She did not call Declan. Not yet. She called her sister and asked her to come to dinner. Thursday night. Heavy rain. Harper parked the Mercedes in front of the bungalow on Sulphur Springs Road and sat with the engine off. The wipers stopped mid-arc. Water ran in sheets down the windshield. She had rehearsed a sentence on the drive over and forgotten it at the curb. She sat there nearly 4 minutes before she opened the door. She walked up. The porch light came on before she reached the swing. Declan opened the door in a plain navy Henley and held it wide. He had not been asleep, but he had not been waiting at the window either. "Mira is asleep. I did not come for work." He stepped back and let her in. She stood in the small living room with the rainwater darkening the shoulders of her coat. He did not offer to take it. He did not offer her tea. He waited. "I was wrong," she said. "Not because I did not know who you were. Because I did not ask you why you were late. I made up my mind before I listened. That is the part I am here to own." He looked at her a long second. Then he set down the cup of tea he had been holding. The cup made a small sound against the saucer. "You did not have to come here to say that," he said. "I was not waiting for it." "I know. That is what makes it matter." A small sound came from the hallway. Mira had drifted in, sleep-warm, rubbing one eye with the heel of her hand. She wore pajamas with rocket ships on them. "Daddy, is the nice lady talking to you?" Declan crossed the room and lifted her up against his shoulder. "She is. Go back to bed, sweetheart." Mira looked at Harper a long moment over her father's shoulder. Then she reached out and held a folded sheet of drawing paper toward her. "For you." Harper unfolded it. A red cardinal sat on a branch. Beside the first bird, a second, smaller, leaning slightly toward the first. "Thank you," Harper said. Her voice did not entirely hold. Declan took Mira back to her room. Harper could hear him singing something low and slow under his breath, a hymn she half recognized from her grandmother's church. When he came out, Harper was still standing with the drawing in her hand at the mantel. There was an empty nail beside the wedding photograph of Declan and Lila Whitford. "May I?" she asked. He nodded. She hung the drawing on the nail. Her hand was unsteady. He stepped beside her to straighten the corner, and his hand brushed hers on the paper. Neither of them moved away. Neither of them spoke. The rain came hard against the porch roof for a count of 5, and then eased. She left without saying goodbye, which felt right. Monday morning. Harper read the email in the elevator on the way up. Special session. 8:30. Motion for executive removal. Vaughn had called the vote a full day early. She did not flinch. She got off on her floor, set her bag down, and made one call. Not to Declan, to Hal Halsey, at Carver's counter. Hal, this is Harper Linwood. I need to find Beatrice, and I need a favor that does not involve breaking her NDA. 10 in the morning. The 16th floor boardroom. 5 members at the long table. A pitcher of water no one had touched. Outside, the city sat under a flat October sky that promised more rain by afternoon. Vaughn had the floor. He read his case the way a prosecutor reads a closing. The late re-engagement, the off-process communication, the personal entanglement with the sister, the loss of confidence among senior staff. He used the word integrity 3 times. He spoke for 11 minutes. He did not look at Harper once. When he finished, he sat. He folded his hands on the table the way a man folds them when he believes the count is already in his pocket. The double doors opened. Declan stepped in. A dark gray suit, no tie. It was not an expensive suit. It was the suit he had worn to bury his wife. It still fit. Mira sat outside in the hall too, with B. Halsey, drawing something with her red crayon. The door swung shut behind him without a sound. I am not here to talk about Margot Linwood, Declan said. That conversation is not the board's business, and it never will be. He laid a thin folder on the table. I am here to talk about the Carolina Coast distribution contract and why it nearly failed. He spoke for 9 minutes. He did not raise his voice. He did not look at Harper. He walked them through the manifest, the failure point, the metadata fingerprints on the 3 last-minute route changes, the timestamps of the edits, and the user account that had made them. He laid each page in front of a different board member as he went, so each of them had to read it themselves. Every edit had come from Vaughn Pritchard's terminal. Every timestamp fell on a date when only Vaughn had been on shift in the operations suite. Vaughn rose. His face had gone white at the edges. You have no right. I have the right of a man who worked 6 honest months at this company and was fired for stopping to help an old woman named Edith Harlan, who fell at the Merrimon bus stop. 911 report, 7:43 in the morning. The dispatcher's name was Carla. I did not say so at the time because I did not want to trade a good deed for a job. I am saying it now because someone else in this room needs to be protected. He looked at Harper for the first time. It lasted less than a breath. Then he turned back to the chairman. Garrison cleared his throat. Mr. Pritchard, sit down. Vaughn sat. His chair did not move quite right under him. The vote was 4-1. Harper retained. Vaughn suspended pending an internal investigation that would, 3 weeks later, end his career in this city. Declan picked up his folder and walked out without ceremony. In the hall, Mira held up her drawing. He took her hand. The two of them walked toward the elevator without hurrying. Harper watched him go through the glass of the boardroom doors. She did not move from her chair for a long moment after the room had emptied. Garrison touched her shoulder once on his way out. He did not say anything. He did not need to. 3 weeks later, Linwood Freight had a new chief operating officer. His nameplate read Declan A. Whitford in plain serif. He took the salary because he meant to do the work, and a man should be paid for the work he does. He brought no other change to his life. He still drove the Ford, still wore the Carhartt on cold mornings, still picked Mira up from school at 3:15 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The board chairman shook his hand at the all-staff meeting. The chairman's hand was steadier than his voice. The staff did not ask him about the boardroom. They did not need to. The story had moved through the building the way good stories move, by way of the people in the warehouse first. On Friday, Mira came to the office. She sat up at the corner of her father's desk with crayons and a fresh sheet, and she made a card for Harper, a third red cardinal, between the two from before, smaller and slightly off-center. You are the one in the middle, she said, sliding it across the desk. Because you came after. Harper laughed once, eyes wet at the corners, and did not try to hide it. She set the card on the shelf behind her, leaning against the window glass where the light could find it. That evening, the three of them ate dinner at Harper's house on Vanderbilt Place. Roast chicken, root vegetables, a loaf of bread. Mira insisted on tearing herself. Margot came by for dessert with a pie she had made badly and laughed about. At the door, she hugged Declan for the first time since the diner. She held on a beat longer than she meant to. "I do not know how to thank you," she said. "You lived," he said. "That is the thank you." After Margot left, Harper walked Declan and Mira out to the parking pad behind her house. A light rain was falling. The old F-150 sat next to her Mercedes, and the contrast looked like a joke neither of them needed to make. He opened her car door first. Not his, hers. She stood beside it without getting in. "Why were you quiet for so long?" she asked. He looked at her. 1 second. 2. "Because the right thing does not have to announce itself," he said. "It only has to be done." She put her hand on his sleeve, the worn Carhartt cuff, for 1 second. He did not pull away. He did not step toward her. The distance between them closed by exactly 1 step, and no more. "Good night, Harper." "Good night, Declan." Mira waved from the passenger seat of the truck. Harper waved back. The little hand kept waving long after the truck turned its lights on. The Ford rolled out of the lot. Harper stood in the soft rain with her hand still warm where it had touched his sleeve. She did not get in her own car. She stood there a long time, until the taillights disappeared at the end of the block, and the sound of the engine had gone too. Some debts are not paid back in words. They are paid back in the slow, quiet choosing of someone, one ordinary day at a time.